Tonight on Footy Furnace, Freo claims the minor premiership. Collingwood and Hawthorn play in a draw. Speaking of draws, Carlton and the Western Bulldogs play an absolute banger that ends in a draw, and Carlton claim a wildcard playoff spot. Footy Furnace starts now. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Furnace. What a cracking round of football we've had. We've got draws, we've got ripping games of football, and we have a final 10. And to dig into it is the legend, James Hird. How are you, Hirdy?
I'm good. I'm exhausted, actually, Jim, after the last two draws. It's a bit nerve-wracking. I was at the Essendon game, checking my phone, the Carlton game. It's all happening. But, yeah, the top 10 is set.
Yes, so wild card, all that sort of stuff. Normally we have a race to 8, but no, we have a top 10 locked away. No need to play the last round, or you better play the last round because Greg Swan will pick your team and send you a memo. Fremantle wrap up the minor premiership, of course. A great game over there on Friday night, and you know they flex their muscles. They're a tough team to beat. Sydney Swans. We'll touch on shortly because they felt like they went through the motions a little bit. But we have almost two races going on here, Hirdy. Pretty much third down to seventh there. I know percentage will play a factor, but just with the margins. And then 8, 9 and 10. 8 and 9 there, who's the home final. But they're probably third to seventh where all the interest is going to be this round coming up.
Yeah, well, the Lions Collingwood game, Hawks West Coast game, Melbourne Bulldogs game and Adelaide GWS game all have ramifications for that top 10 and where teams will finish within the top 10, even though, as we're going to highlight, the Carlton Football Club, they've just slipped in the 10th spot and can't be caught by the Saints. And so, yeah, it's going to be a great last round from a point of view of where they sit in the top 10. But we'll get into the Carlton game in a minute. But what a game!
Yeah, it was a beauty. Every hoodie you sold out at Icon Park in the honour of Josh Fraser. But let's get in to the Western Bulldogs and Carlton. It was a draw, of course, 82 apiece. A cracking game of football. And Marvel Stadium, the noise coming through the screen, and it would have been electric under the lid there. And we just take a look at the first three quarters because it was up and back there at Marvel Stadium. No Marcus Bontempelli. A lot of people thought, wow, the Dogs going to handle it. And Carlton didn't. I don't think they played their best footy, in particular in the first three quarters. You know, not what we've come accustomed to. Over the last 6 weeks where they played with that real free, easy ball movement. There was lots of skill errors and the Bulldogs made them pay at vital times. Yeah,
the Bulldogs defended the ground a lot better than they have done. I mean, around stoppage and clearance early on, Cripps and Walsh and co really got hold of the Bulldogs. But, you know, Richards with 2 goals and 31 possessions was absolutely sensational. But I thought it just happens, doesn't it, when there's something on the line which is so important as finals. Carlton go to Fremantle or play Fremantle next week, so there's no certainty they're going to win that. The tension started to come on a bit and just their ball use lacked a bit of purity that did, but I think we've got to focus on the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs really had not a lot to play for. They can't change their position too much. They're in the 10. But the way they played, I thought particularly late in that last quarter, they're going to win the game.
Yeah, I thought their team defence was much better. We know this year Luke Beveridge tried to protect his back six and, a whole team approach. And they were able to get their numbers back in front of Carlton, especially off half-back. Because you look at the numbers and you highlighted, huge disposals. So they had 456 disposals. That's the third highest this year, apart from a team playing Essendon. Didn't mean to throw that little barb in there. But they only had 48 inside forward 50. So what the Bulldogs did really well is they still applied pressure. They've forced a lot of lateral ball movement from Carlton or stop-start. They weren't able to actually get any pace on the game. Walsh 33, Hewitt 30, Akers 32 and a goal. Akers was fantastic late. Ed Richards had the highest rated game by Western Bulldogs, so supposedly, or that's what we've been told, considering the great Marcus Bontempelli. His games with 31 and 2 for Richards and Libba 33. So it came down to handling the moment at the end there for Carlton. I know it's still a draw, but it felt like Carlton were holding on and Western Bulldogs were trying to get the win.
Well, definitely the last 2 minutes when Carlton realised that a draw would get them through to the playoff round, you see the Carlton players just kicking it around, retaining possession, not trying to even win the game, just making sure it didn't go back the other way. But I thought it was a real up and back game at certain times, and probably the composure of both teams lacked a little bit because there's so much riding on the line for probably Carlton as well.
Yeah, I reckon with about 8 minutes to go, it was the real decision making, and this is why I'm a fan of the draw. Not just because of the round, because it's how you approach the game. Some people, do you risk losing to win, or do you hold on and play the game out and hopefully pinch it? But in the last 8 minutes, both sides had plenty of opportunities, some great defensive work from both of them, got the turnover, and then once they got sort of forward of the logos, they just rushed that next kick. And now I know there was players dropping off because it was, again, that risk versus reward.
Yep.
We still need a bit of cover, but can we get them on the rebound? And that player staying back was able to turn the footy over really well.
It's a great point you made about the player staying back, because a lot of the times Carlton were kicking the ball into an outnumber in their forward line, so the Bulldogs had a player back, maybe just a bit of a chip. But there was the pressure of the game and what it meant. And there's no doubt that when the pressure hits and it means more, players' decision-making isn't always what it should be.
Ed Richards is one of my favourite players to watch. Yep. I love the way he goes about footy. He's really shifty. He takes the game forward. He's a beautiful ball user. 31 and 2 goals. He was dynamic. He was absolutely super. His ball use, as we know, he's a sharp left foot kick, and super off the half-back flank. But then since the move, he's into the midfield the last couple of years, he's one of the best in the game. He's a legit bona fide A+ grader in the midfield.
And he had to do a lot on his own, as we said before, without English and without Bontempelli in the midfield. A lot more sat on him. And when with 31 possessions and 2 goals, I thought he was one of the standout players of the day. And all credit to him.
He got caught running too far late in the game, but when it panned back, he had no teammates there. So it was like, do I kick along the ground? Do I try and buy a bit of time? And the umpire pinged him for running too far. Lots of highlights in this game, and it's time for this week's High Flyer, thanks to Fiji Airways, the happiest way from Australia to the world. And it's Will Hayward's absolute hanger here, launched into space and came down so awkwardly. Could have been a lot worse. Almost looked like a broken ankle there, but that's a proper sit, launch. Really, knocked himself out there too. If you watch his head, really doing on his head there, but he had to hobble in and had enough composure to kick the goal, and there was no celebration.
No, he came back on, but I don't think he finished the game all that well.
No, he looked really sore. He played it a lot deeper just to get through the game. Thank you, Fiji Airways, for this week's High Flyer. From Fiji, you can connect straight into a growing North American network, including Los Angeles, Dallas, Honolulu and Vancouver. With Fiji Airways, your holiday starts here before you land. What an absolute belter of a hanger. Well, the other draw, of course, was Hawthorn and Collingwood, and it's the second time they've played in a draw. The previous one was 93-93. This was 92-92, and they say sport is all scripted. Well, they got the ball in the man's hand again in Dylan Moore to have the final shot, and that is a go-big moment for Hyundai. So, Dylan Moore, he eventually gets it as the play goes out. I love that bold kick from Collingwood. There was no one there. It was bold, yes. They didn't find anyone. Quick ball movement off the half-back line for Hawthorn. Hey, look at that raking kick by D'Ambrosio. Settles in here. Jack Gunston. Bang.
So, 25 seconds to go here. I was surprised that more teammates didn't come and settle him down. And this here, you've had a shot like this after siren like this, Jimmy, but you've just got to make sure you score, don't you?
Yeah, well, he was a bit further out than I was. I was only about 15 metres out, so it was a lot easier for me just to... I could have kicked it off my shin. I was that close compared to Dylan Moore, but well done by Swaddling there too.
It was a great effort by Swaddling. I don't think Hawthorn handled that moment as well as they possibly could. I think that you've just got to make sure you get a point. Obviously, they'll learn from it, but more players on the goal line shepherding through. But Swaddling was an incredible performance. Yeah,
we only just found out about that play. Broadcasters finally got us there to show us the final.
That was strange, wasn't it? It took 2 or 3 minutes to actually find out that that's what happened.
Yeah, we'll follow the ball. It's the most important moment. Anyway, speaking of following the ball, we followed Collingwood's ball movement, and I loved it. The speed and zip, and we've touched on this since Elliott went out of the side, and how good their defence has been. And this has allowed Membry, McStay, Schultz and others to shine. And you love this long down the line.
This is a long down the line method. Collingwood's so good at. You've got the 3 players front and square from Collingwood, right where the ball's going to fall. The Hawthorn players are more spread out. You've got to take care of the outside, but the inside first and then the outside. Normally Collingwood have a corridor player there as well. This time they didn't. But you can see why. You can see who's favourite to win that ball if that ball hits the ground. Collingwood, because they're going to outnumber. And as it plays out, and then we see Collingwood scoot through and they get a shot at goal.
Also, look at the top of the screen. This is what they do really well, Collingwood. So the players press up from either side. That's why they often get the release kick on the junction, the corner of the 50.
Yep.
If you don't get it on your side, you keep your lane, and that one's tracking through the middle. So probably your corridor one's gone a bit inside. So they've got the 2 through the middle and that one on the far side. So when we let this play out, because they've got the outnumber, one player can sneak forward, which is big Charlie West here. Forward handball. I thought McCreary was fantastic, actually, with his dash and dare from the contest.
Yep.
And you actually create that space, or you've got that knowing that kick on the far side. We almost have the flip side or the mirror image of this from the other side. So we get it in tight there, and you look, now we see those 2 keeping their lane on the outside because they're there. McCreary misses this one. He banged one through a little bit earlier. but lots and lots of space to move in. And guys at the contest know, hey, I've got them on that side.
And this is why Collingwood are such a fantastic team. We'll talk about the young players they've got on the side at the moment, but their structure and their discipline to play a certain way and play their roles is heads and shoulders, I think, above any other team, maybe Fremantle doing it. But with the quality of play out in the ground, Collingwood should not have drawn that game. I mean, Hawthorn had the talent, all the young players, but I just loved what Collingwood do with their structure. It gives them a chance in every game. We
highlighted this a couple of weeks ago, but let's go again because we are very happy with the Collingwood under 40 games. The young players there, Ed Allen's found himself a permanent spot as a big midfielder. Lots of exciting there. I like Will Hayes, a couple of beautiful goals, wheeling onto that left foot. Puncher, of course, as another back. Howes, who's been as a back. I'm a big fan of Swaddling.
Oh, absolutely. But there's no right for Collingwood to draw that game with what was it, 9 players under 40 games or 10 players under 40 games. That's not fair. You shouldn't be able to do that. But that's all credit to Craig McCroney's coaching staff and the players that play with that discipline. I was fascinated coming into this game because I think Hawthorn are a very disciplined team. They have a certain style of play. But it's very hard to beat Collingwood no matter who they play. Next man up, and they get 4 or 5 back coming in the finals. They're going to be hard to beat.
You've touched on Hawthorn and clearance throughout the year. What does Sam Mitchell do? Does he change the personnel? Does he change the structure? What would you suggest?
Well, you've got Day, you've got good players in there, but I think they've got to actually get this clearance and stuff sorted out because if they don't, they're continually trying to just attack using ball movement and from defence. And I really think it's whether it's throwing another number up at the stoppage, which gives your team an outnumber behind the ball, but I think there's a structural issue there to actually give them more density around the stoppage to actually help them get clearances and contests and the ball going their way.
Back to Friday night, Fremantle eventual winners over the Adelaide Crows by 24 points. I thought the Crows did a lot right in this game, and it was Freo's depth and talent across the ground which allowed them to get over the line. Of course, they are a strong defensive unit, but this is what I love seeing from high-class midfielders and high-class players who keep working on their game. So midfield goals and their intensity and intent to actually get after it. Their leaders buy in. So Josh Tracy, you and I both say we'd love to play footy with because he just does everything.
Press the jumper in front. Yeah.
That's it. And Brayshaw leads the charge with tackling. So then O'Driscoll, you have to do it because if Tracy and Brayshaw and Sarong and Pearce are all running and doing the little things, well, you have to do it to stay in the side. And it's infectious. They had 72 tackles.
Yeah.
Like that's a big number because we know the game's in flow a lot more, with a limited amount of stoppages and
great, isn't it? It's just great pressing the jumper in front and Dudley to actually tackle from behind as well.
Yeah, look at these repeat efforts. Sarong, bang, next one in. Clark in there. Unfortunately, Rankin cops one in the hip there, but good things come off the back of defensive work. Jackson was the next one in. You and I got taught by very similar people, and it's the old VCR then. Now they use things a bit cooler. Now that's pause. How many jumpers are in and when are the next ones coming in?
And that to me is a premiership defence. That's a premiership defence, not just the back six, but that's the way they defend the ground. That's the sort of pressure you need in finals to press the ground. And Adelaide Crows were, Rankin 39, 4 shots at goal, Dawson 27, 8 tackles. They had some good players, but 2 players can't compete against that sort of pressure.
And that's what I wanted to highlight too. Sarong, Bolton and Brayshaw. Bolton had 16 inside forward 50s, equal record, but Brayshaw and Sarong, that's taking their game to even a higher level. And they're 2 super players I love watching play footy as well, but hit the scoreboard, you become an even bigger threat. Second half numbers for Freo, is it complacency? I have a different opinion, but they close out games better than anybody else.
I don't think it's complacency at all. What I think it is they wear teams down and the second half they run over the top. Everyone's come up against Freo now is testing their weight and they can go for 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters. What they can't do is go for 4 quarters. The really good teams fight, scrap, get it done early, and then in the second half, that's when they kick their goals and that's when they gap it. So I don't think it's complacency at all. I think it's a great style of football. It wears other teams down. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. And we keep touching on their maturity. They work out what you're throwing at them and they can work their way through it or around it. Hey, small backs, they've had some interesting selection decisions, of course. So a lot of people focus on, which ruck is going to pair with Luke Jackson. I think with the form of course, McDonald, and then you bring in Brendan Cox, and then you've got to have Alex Pearce in there as well and the rest of their defensive group. They left Judd McVie out, but small forwards are the ones who actually can find the scoreboard
There aren't many weaknesses in the Fremantle team, and I'm not saying this is a massive weakness, but ground balls in their defensive back 50, when Manor, Green, Watson, Green, these players are kicking, multiple goals against them. I think that's a slight weakness. Is it a weakness that's going to cost them in September? Probably not, to the point they're going to lose. But have they got enough small backs to cover those small forwards? And you think about the finals they're going to play against Brisbane. They've got some pretty good small forwards, and Hawthorn particularly got some small forwards. So just have to clean that area up if there's any weakness at all.
The big Yeti, Riley Thilthorpe, he still looks sore to me because they kept him deep, and we've seen in previous years when they need to get him into the game, they throw him up in the ruck or let him move around the ground a fair bit. It's been a reluctance to play him in the ruck this year, and I just think it's probably because he's probably got one or two ailments that we're not completely
aware
of.
So you definitely think he's sore somewhere? Do you know something?
No, I don't know anything, but we saw last year that he can impact the game whether he plays ruck. He's a different
player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's having to play a lot deeper. I'd love to see where the hot spots were the other night or in previous rounds, because he just looks like a man who, I don't know whether it's a back or something like that, but surely they would have released him up the ground, even given Big McAndrew a bit of a chop out at different times. So we'll soon find out. But Isaac Rankin and Jordan Dawson couldn't have done much more.
No, they couldn't. I mean, we highlighted just earlier, but, Rankin with 39 possessions, 4 shots a goal. Dawson, 27 possessions, 8 tackles. They're doing a lot on their own. They need a little bit more help. They're two absolutely dynamic, sensational players, different players, but particularly against that Fremantle midfield and all that attack, it was just too much for them.
We touched on 3rd to 7th and that race for those final spots, of course, in the top 4 and the top 6. It's time to bring in Jules Valance, who has more on that race for 3rd with Foxcatcher Insights, all powered by PointsBet.
Thanks, Jimmy. OK, you boys looked at the ladder, that 3rd and 4th with Brisbane and Hawthorn. Fascinating after Hawthorn, obviously, with that draw, and Collingwood. Let's look at the numbers and what might need to happen for Hawthorn to leapfrog Brisbane to get into that 3rd spot and play Sydney in a qualifying final. So Brisbane and Hawthorn are on the same amount of points. 119.5% Brisbane. Hawthorn sit at 117.3%. Collingwood will host Brisbane at the MCG, and Hawthorn have to obviously travel to Perth to West Coast. This is the setup. If Brisbane defeat Collingwood, and we've got it now, so if they win by a point, Hawthorn will probably need to win by 43 points or more against West Coast. If Brisbane win by 20 points or more, then Hawthorn need to win by 62 plus points. If Brisbane beat Collingwood by 40 points, then Hawthorn need to win by 80 plus. And if Brisbane are to torch the Pies and win by 60 plus, Hawthorn are going to need to win by 99 plus points or more. If Brisbane obviously defeat the Pies by more than 60 points, well, Hawks, just keep your bags and stay over in Perth. Hit up the cot because you'll be playing Fremantle in the first week.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Footy Furnace is brought to you by PointsBet's Pull'em, available on all AFL games. What's gambling really costing you?
From sound advice there from our man Jules, if there's ever a man who knows the place to be.
He was a busy man, Jules, because he was down at the Borough yesterday watching Port Melbourne beat Collingwood. He's always busy.
You're into the finals, congratulations.
We are, yes, we are. We get a week off. Yep.
Can't wait to see the green velour suit out from Jules Valance at quarter time, giving you cuddles. The last game of the round was Essendon taking on the Sydney Swans. It was a blistering start from the Swans, 9 goals to 1 in the first quarter. But after that, the Bombers actually won the final 3 quarters by a point.
Yeah, the Bombers were very good after quarter time. I think first quarter was pretty ugly for the Bombers. Sydney were able to do as they pleased with their ball movement, but I was really happy to see after quarter time the way they closed the game down. As you said, they won the last 3 quarters, which is probably the first time they've done that since they won that game at the Giants. It's been a while, but Peter Wright, Nate Caddy kicking goals, and it was good to see. But the Swans, I felt, didn't really look after the ball the way they should after quarter time.
Yeah, I said 9 goals to 1. It was 9 goals to 3. My apologies. But the Bombers, they tried to apply a lot more defensive pressure, which was good because 15 more tackles, and all this is since quarter time. They restricted the marks, which you and I have been screaming out for. They kept Sydney to about 73 marks, and that brings you into the game. Some huge numbers, as we spoke about. 46 disposals from Errol Goulden, which is a Swans record. 4 goals from Charlie Curnow. Heaney, 3 goals too from his 29. Warner with 23 and 23 and 3. Setterfield had a good day, 32 and a goal, and Nate Caddy with 3 goals. But their Swans stoppage was brilliant today.
Yeah,
that was the big separator.
Particularly early.
52-point winners in that statistical area alone. And when Heaney and Warner and all those guys get on the move, Brodie Grundy, of course, just a physically dominant player. And he senses a kill against a less experienced ruckman and knows how to capitalise on it.
Yeah, and he let his younger ruckman do a bit of the work in the second half. I think he had a bit of a spell in the second half. But, Heaney and Warner with 3 goals each were pretty brilliant, and Goulden around stoppages. They dominated early and certainly set the tone. And it's very hard when you're trying to win the game from the back line when you lose that territory game. But look at Warner getting out the front of a stoppage there. That is a beautiful kick to Heaney. It's sort of like a bit of soccer stuff. See it out of your right and put it in. And Heaney nailing, I think he kicked 3 for the day. Yeah,
Will Green was a young ruck and took him high in the draft, which you don't often see ruckmen get taken high in the draft. Do you feel like, though, they're playing a lot more kick possession as a bit of a warm-up practice? Because I know all the focus has been on that handball through the corridor. It looked today like they were trying to bite off a lot of kicks, and sometimes they weren't there.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're trying to play a bit of a style. After quarter time, I think the Sydney Swans coaches would have been a little bit disappointed with the way they used the ball or didn't take care of the ball. And that's not a criticism. They were far ahead. They were always going to win the game. But if I was the coaches at Sydney, I would have liked to have seen the ball use just be more considered and just be a little bit slower at certain times, the build-up so you can control the ball. But that's the way Sydney play, I suppose. That's the way they play. But the MCG hasn't been the happiest hunting ground for the Swans over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think they would have hoped to have played a little bit better after quarter time.
Yeah, it was a nice little tune-up for them, which they hope to be back on that big day again. North Melbourne, 39 points up at one stage against Geelong, and they do play Marvel really, really well, but it was a true reflection of the Cats, again, being able to just keep calm in the crisis, the footy crisis, and they end up running out 15-point winners. The next layer, next thing they need to add on top of their game, North Melbourne, and again, you can only work on so much, and they've been building, and you know I've been an advocate for North Melbourne, been improving. The next layer for them is just that final kick going inside forward 50 in the front half. And I think I've touched on this in, I reckon, about 3 of the last 4 games where they've been in it. You even go back to the Hawthorn game. It's just a bit of composure. And this time it was coming out of their back half because Geelong have been pressing really hard in the last 6 weeks. So their front half turnover game's really sharp.
But that kick's just poor.
Yeah, but why are you kicking out there? That can't be the drawn-up play going to... I know Caleb Daniels is a good kick, but you don't want him running onto his left to the boundary. That's not the way to draw it up. You have to ignore that one and take the contest on. But Geelong's front half press forced a lot of these errors. But you've got to learn to make your way through them as well.
Have they shifted their game a bit in the last 6 to 8 weeks, Geelong, that they're much more a front half press than they were at the start of the year? It feels like that's what they're doing better than they did at the start of the year.
Yeah, they're committing and working harder. And also that's a bit of personnel because remember now that they're obviously Close and Myers are back in the side, they're a little bit more nimble across the front half, and that allowed Geelong to take so many intercept marks.
So, Jim, with North, are you a half glass full after that performance to be 39 points up against the Cats, or are you... they should have really iced the game. 40 points is a big margin.
Yes, but that is why I'm glass half full, because once they get to this stage of the year, well, the last few years they haven't won pretty much any games, but they've been belted by Geelong in the second half of the year. When teams get tired and younger sides start to fade away, or all hope's gone, and you're just trying to get to the line.
Are they as young as you think they are?
No, not anymore.
Right.
But if we went back to 22 and 23, 24, those sort of years. But once you know you're not playing any finals, you're well down near the bottom. The hope goes, and you're just trying to.
No, I'm half glass full on North. I think.
So have I got you? Have you improved? Like North Melbourne have improved?
No, 100%. Of course they have. But I think you've got to look at that performance for the majority of it. But I think they cost themselves the game with what you're right, the way they use the ball after they got so far in front.
Cats have still got a few to come back in. Of course, they play Richmond, I think, in the last round. Jeremy Cameron's a chance. Max Holmes, we're still unsure. And the TBC, well, we don't know.
Are they going to do damage in September, you think?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think if you treat them with the same level of respect of, Collingwood and Brisbane and these sort of sides who just keep fronting up every year. And until they don't. Well,
Okay.
Like they're hard to argue against, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Because they're going to be well organised and you have to beat them. The pineapple grapple. It'll get there one day.
You reckon it won't be the Q clash, it's the pineapple grapple? It's a much more attractive way of saying it.
Seriously, like Q clash. I dare you to be a marketing person and go out there and try and sell Q Clash.
The pineapple grapple is the way to go. I think we should.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep going.
Get on board. Brisbane by 42 points. Suns, this has been the Suns all year. They're just conditional, and we get to see this. No better than Dane Zorko. So, Tiggy Touchwood 50, of course. He just goes jogging down the middle of the Gabba. It's a pretty obvious place, the middle of the Gabba there. He goes past the wicket, checks a good length. Says, yep, just head back a little bit further. No one wants to man the mark, and he kicks an absolute 2-iron straight over the umpire's hat.
Does that basically sum up their whole year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically where they're at. There's not too much concern. It just feels like, the team's not on the same page.
No. Let's take a listen to Damien Hardwick when he was asked about Christian Petrarca.
He's had a bit of a downturn in form sort of thing. I've got to find how I can best use him, I think, and that's up to me to figure it out. We've had some really good conversations, and he will do whatever I want for the benefit of the team. That's a great thing about Christian. Like, he's a guy that has come from a background at Melbourne where best player, Norm Smith medalist and all that sort of stuff. And what I'm after Christian is a little bit different up here.
What would the different be?
Run back, tackle, chase, more defensive around stoppage, not just go forward.
There's 3 phases of the game.
Yes. Yep. I think, look, Christian Petrarca, as Damien said, has been an incredible player and had an incredible first half of the year. But I don't think it's just Christian Petrarca. I think that midfield has been conditional about they've played the game, and I think for them to have a successful 2027, they need to have more balance around the contest and more balance through the midfield and more players running that way instead of that way.
You and I spoke about Josh Tracy being a fun guy to play with. Well, I think Logan Morris will be a lot of fun to play footy with. Again, it's going to be up there on the Coleman Medal leaderboard. Just such a consistent start to his career, and consistent kind of feels like we're selling him a bit short how brilliant he's been to start his career. Multiple premierships, at different times has been the one tall on the forward line, and he just gets the job done week in, week out.
I think his first couple of years he was that player, the bullocking player. He'd lead up, he'd sit under a pack, he'd take a mark, he'd get a couple. But now he's actually showing the talent he's got, as well as being that hard-working forward. Some of the marks and the way he's kicking goals, the way he's performing. There's a lot more skill and a lot more to come in Logan Morris. And if he's not on every Melbourne club's radar to try and get back here, I don't know who he is, because he is a star forward.
Yeah, scary prospect, what he could be when he hits the prime of his career.
How old is he, 22?
22?
22, yeah.
Sorry if you've had your 23rd birthday, but we're assuming 22. For more on what it means to be a favourite in season 2026, it's Jules Valance with Foxcatcher Insights.
Thanks, Jimmy. Okay, 1 round to go. So let's look at all the games that have played. 198 thus far in 2026. And if you're in the footy tipping and you're one off or you're leading, I think it's worth looking at these numbers as we roll through them. So 198 games, 148 favourites have won. So that equals 75% in terms of the win strike rate. Round 9 was the only round that all favourites were able to win, the 9 of them. And only one team has been able to win at $4.50 or more at the start of the game. It was in round 19. It was Essendon when they were $6.50 or a 15% probability of winning the game against GWS, and they did it. Why that's important? Well, we'll look at round 24 and see if you can get ahead of that person in front of you in the footy tipping. And I think you have to remove 3 of those games because there's going to be teams that don't really have any hope. And the underdogs haven't really won much. So Geelong, Richmond, Sydney, North Melbourne, Hawthorn, West Coast, you remove that from the sample. And I think there's 3 games we can focus on that maybe they'll be in the sweet spot of chance and probability that you have to go one way. And maybe that gets you over the line in your footy tipping. St Kilda versus Gold Coast, Collingwood versus Brisbane, and Carlton versus Fremantle. I think those 3 games, if you be brave, you might be able to win your footy tipping this year.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Jimmy, win the ultimate stay this AFL Grand Final weekend with Brady Hotels.
It's a beauty. One lucky winner could win an unforgettable Melbourne experience for 2, including a 2-night stay at the brand new Brady Hotel, Elizabeth Street, plus more, valued at over $1,700.
With 5 CBD locations, Brady Hotels puts you close to the footy, dining, shopping and Melbourne's best attractions. So there's no better time to book a winter city escape.
Book and complete a qualifying stay before 31st of August 2026, of course. Visit bradyhotels.com.au/grand final to find out more. Terms and conditions apply. We have to go back half a step. We looked up Logan Morris's birthday.
Unbelievable.
It's scary. He's 21.
And in 3 months or 4 months.
And
It's nowhere near 22.
He doesn't turn 22 until the 10th of May next year.
Do you think he's still eating McDonald's on the way to the game?
He can eat whatever he likes because he's a star already. Giants versus West Coast, 54-point winners for the Giants. And between the second and third quarter, the West Coast Eagles only managed to kick 9 behinds to 8-7, and that was the difference in the game. But everyone filled their boots here for the Giants. Ash 36, Whitfield 33, Callum Brown kicked 4, Cadman 3. Harvey Thomas has had a really good year on the wing, just charging up and down the wing for the Giants. Probably been one of their more consistent players in an inconsistent side. He had 20 and 2. And Toby Green, the big question was, is this one of his last games for the GWS Giants? He certainly didn't show it the way he played. A couple of goals and really impactful. And Jobe Shanahan, who you and I love seeing fly at the footy with a big hanger there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the start of this game, you thought West Coast was a very competitive game. It's going to be a really tight game. But you're right, after quarter time, GWS just took control, and their ball movement just ripped straight through the West Coast Eagles. And I thought the Eagles, in the end, were poor after a good start. Minnie
McQualter at half-time was asked what were the issues fronting him in the first half.
Look, first quarter, I thought we were pretty dominant. We had time in forward half. We had great entry. They scored too efficiently, and then second half, we couldn't delay them at all. So we couldn't get any defence in our front half. We didn't get any front half turnovers, and we just allowed them to move the ball too easily. And when you do that against the Giants, they're pretty threatening.
So when they get back and they do their review, these will be some of the edits they look at. And what he's talking about delay is, sometimes you get beaten or the opposition wins the ball, but can you slow it down or allow your backs to get a chance? And when the ball gets into long down the line method or it gets into a bit of tempo, we know the Giants can play this style of footy really well. If you can slow or delay them by making them kick lateral or just go backwards with a handball. So this is slow. You should be set. But the thing is, they actually lose a bit of their structure around the ball. The Giants on the fly, and a bit like how we showed with Collingwood, they keep their lanes really well and it opens up the ground and you're able to turn the opposition around. And the worst thing when you're a defensive side is where your numbers are facing the wrong way, the backs are your jumpers, because you can't do much defending that way and you can't get much help from your teammates.
And that one there, you see the West Coast Eagles forwards aren't helping their mids and backs out. When the ball comes into your forward line, sometimes your mids haven't got a time to set up and your backs haven't got time to set up. You need your forwards to actually slow the game down, as you said, Jimmy, to give you time to set up behind that ball, and that just didn't happen at all. And that is a problem with your forward line and your wingers getting deep as much as it is your mids and backs. And I just don't think the West Coast Eagles forwards gave enough cover for their mids and backs to get set up.
Saturday night at the Adelaide Oval, Melbourne were professional and ruthless, particularly in the first half. They won this one by 76 points. And you can just see in the last couple of weeks, Port Adelaide searching for the finish line. Of course, injuries are starting to pile up. Well, they've been there all year. They've defended really well for most of the year, but they're just fading away as the year goes by. And have a look at that final number. Points from intercept. That's world record sort of stuff. 111 points off turnover.
It's incredible, and all credit to the Melbourne Football Club and Stephen King, because we would have thought they're going to fall over at some stage. They haven't. Going into state, particularly Adelaide, is a very difficult thing. But for Josh Carr, his best 3 players, Rosie, Horde-Francis and Butters, all out. I mean, if you think as a first-year coach, you want at least one of them in the middle of the ground. He's lost them all, and it's been very hard after that's happened.
Yeah, respectfully, if Butters leaves, remember, you've got to be respectful. Of course, if Butters is leaving, and
why do you have to be respectful?
Just show a bit more respect there, please. And they should be kissing.
I feel like I've missed something.
Yeah, you have. Okay. I'll explain it to you during the next break. But they should be kissing Jason Horne-Francis' knee, because it looked like he'd done his ACL at first sight. And I just want to show Connor Rosie, of course, this is after the game. This man who did a pretty serious hamstring injury round 2. And watch him try and turn here. Ugh, that doesn't look like that is. He might be braced up to the max underneath there, his tracky pants, but they want him right for, at least to get a nice solid pre-season, because they've missed him badly. He's a star.
Yeah, yes, there's 6 months to the start of the next season, but there's a pre-season to get through, and if you're going to have a good year, you need a good pre-season. And
the other big talking point out of this game is Jacob van Rooyen. He's been handed 3 weeks by the MRO. You can imagine Melbourne is definitely going to challenge it. You've got to challenge, because obviously that means it's ruling out either wildcard or first finals game with 3 weeks. I try and make the argument he got the ball first. People settle down. We're not trying to do anything, but we're trying to make the argument for Jacob van Rooyen and Melbourne's legal team. We're trying to argue that he's touched the ball first.
I think it came off the ball, bounced off the ball and hit in the head. But the fact of the matter is he hit him in the head. The guy went off HIA. And unfortunately, and Jacob Brown, no one is saying he did that deliberately because he didn't. But the way the rules are, they're going to have a very tough time to get that down to 2 weeks. And he's such an important player for them. That's going to be very costly for them coming into the finals.
Speaking of finals, it's time for the final check-in on scoring across venues in 2026. It's Jules Valance with Foxcatcher Insights.
Thanks, Jimmy. Let's look at the grounds in 2026. I know we've got one round left, but let's look at the total points scored. So the kinds of games that we saw, and obviously I've got bold some of these grounds as well because they're going to be used for the wild cards and obviously for the finals later on this year. Gabba and People First Stadium averaging 192 per game. They hit the overs majority of the time too. So you played in that space, there was money to be made. SCG at 191. 9 teams scored 100 plus in the 10 games. So outstanding SCG. Look for that in the finals as well. NG Stadium at 189. It holds the record for 2026. 254 in round 11 was the score there. GMHBA, only one game. One team didn't hit 100 plus. Always been a high scoring ground with the Cats. MCG Twilight, 183. So that's the highest scoring time slot for the G. Marvel Stadium, most games played at this, 42 for 2026. UTAS, down in Tasmania, Hawthorn, that lifted from 146 to 178 this year, so they became a high-scoring ground. Then we get to Optus Stadium. Interestingly, it sits at 168 and Freo average 168, so worth keeping in mind when they host some qualifying finals and possibly a prelim final. And then we get to the MCG Day. It's a really interesting one because it'll host the grand final and may not host any other games in that day time slot. Average is 165. We know the modelling goes off what the average is. There's only been 9 games played in that 165. The grand final, that's the way where we hit. The modelling will probably sit us maybe low 170s. Just smash the overs. That'll be our opportunity to make plenty of money. And the Adelaide Oval, well, it's a low-scoring ground. The lowest scoring in terms of the AFL this year in 2026.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Footy Furnace, brought to you by the all-new Alexio EV by Hyundai. Fiji Airways, the happiest way from Australia to the world. Fiji Airways, where happiness takes flight. And Brady Hotels and Apartments, Melbourne's CBD accommodation just minutes from Marvel Stadium and the MCG.
The Jack Higgins Cup, St Kilda versus Richmond, 49-point winners for the Saints, and it was trying to keep their wildcard hopes alive, but they were dashed, of course, with Carlton getting the 2 points and locking them out of the 10. And Adam Uze has been pretty measured throughout the year in post-match press conferences, but he was a little bit more disappointed this week.
Really, really disappointed with our performance. We got outworked, we got outplayed. We got smashed in a lot of the areas that we've been really strong in contested possession and inside 50s and time in half over the last few weeks, which on a really important day, it was really embarrassing. So our players and some of the lads that feel like if they've felt like they haven't played well today and performed at a level that would have made Brody and Dion Prestia proud, we've got to be really honest and live with that. So.
Big summer ahead, and hopefully he has got a full set to work with, because that's all we've been asking for. We just want to see him play together for 20 to 30 games so we can see what they're trying to do, because at the moment he's just, fingers in the water, leaky boat.
The high performance staff have got a big job to do at Richmond this pre-season to get them fit and on the park. He
highlighted Dion Prestia and Nathan Broad being 2 absolute champs for the Richmond Football Club. Dion Prestia didn't use the word, retirement. He's keen if someone's willing to go on. We heard earlier reports he could be a greater Western meatball, but he is looking for maybe to keep playing on, and whether that translate into coaching post. Their club could do with his experience, if his body holds up, of course.
Yeah, I think the question mark's his body rather than his actual performances. I think when he's out in the park and he gets a number of games, but just those hamstrings just haven't stood up so far the last couple of years.
Yeah, you and I have spoken about, of course, who can step up when Naz is even playing, but help take the load or the burden off Naz. Well, when he's out the side, Max Hall with 40 touches, but Brad Hill, he's put some sort of 6 weeks together. I think nearly most weeks he's either had 40 or high 30s, but this is the class ball work that he can deliver for St Kilda, and I reckon he's had a really good year. And this is from an outsider looking in. I reckon playing the State of Origin game, might have reminded himself and everybody else that he's a quality player, and sometimes that can give you a boost that you belong with the best out there, and I think he's translated that into the season proper.
Yeah, not just what he does on the field with the ball. I just feel like he's the sort of guy who's leading from the front, and it must be a real culture guy around the place as well, because you can just see his teammates are really attracted to him. And I think, congratulations on the year he has put together, because he hasn't let age get to him. Fantastic on the ground, and I think it looks like he's really helped a lot of the younger kids at St Kilda come through as well.
Time for the early check-in. Thank you to Brady Hotels and Apartments for this week's early check-in, all with locations just minutes from Marvel, the G, of course. Brady Hotels is the perfect choice for your footy weekend accommodation. Friday night footy. These two have played some cracking games over the last half a dozen years. Collingwood and Brisbane. The Pies, they'll need to be at their, call it, system best.
Yes.
To be able to knock over a really creative, freewheeling, in-form Brisbane Lions.
And the Lions also need to win the game. I think the fact that you'd rather play Sydney in Sydney than Fremantle in Perth. I think that's a big one for Brisbane, but also Collingwood. They're getting players back. Their system will work. It's a cracking game on Friday night.
Tomorrow night, Footy Classified is back. I'm on that Monday night. After it is the return of players with Mitch Owen, Maikelti Lafau and Alex Taru. You're back on Tuesday night for Footy Classified. Thanks to all our sponsors, and thanks for watching Footy Furnace.